Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock Athletics Podcast. This is episode 80, and usually I say tonight, but it's actually afternoon. It's about 4 o'clock, June 30th, 2023, and I am in Britt with my guest. This is Dean Hiscocks. Dean was a wrestling state runner-up in 1952, as well as an all-conference football player in 1951. Welcome, Dean. How you doing?
How you doing? Good.
Good. We've been talking for about 15 minutes. I'm like, oh, hey, we should actually start recording this thing so we can tell all the stories. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm at the Britt Library. I have not been in this library since I was about in junior high 20 years ago, and it's a great facility here. So the people of Britt are very lucky to have this place. Very nice facility. So before we get to Dean, I need to recognize our sponsors. The goal, as always, is to raise money for the Sanger Legacy Fund and let people tell their stories and reminisce and create this library we've put together. My sponsors tonight are Nick Schmidt in his image photography and Red, White, and Brew Coffee Company by Ashley Mosier, Sarah Skarsky Bookkeeping Services, The Flower Cart, Levi Dunn Trucking, Linda Hughes, Jay Hiscocks of State Farm Insurance, Window World of Mason City, Ann Hagen, Swenson's Hardware, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Triple B's Food Trucks, Doug and Kathy Zool, and I put Linda Hughes in there twice. So Linda Hughes, you get 2 shout outs today. So thanks again to all those sponsors. Like always, the Sanger Legacy Fund raises money for the West Hancock Hall of Fame. We give scholarships to graduating seniors. We support the athletic and activity funds at West Hancock and any other community outreach that needs money, needs funding, needs help. So please consider giving at sangerstrong.com, or if you want to sponsor the podcast, get a hold of me. Easiest way is Facebook Messenger, and I'd love to have you sponsor the podcast. Way back when, 50 episodes ago, on episode 30, I talked to Dave Smith, also known as David Duvall. David's a professional musician. Check out that podcast. And today's actually Dave's birthday, so happy birthday to my former neighbor, David Smith. Like always, get to my sponsors here, and then we're going to get started with Dean. Thanks to Ann Hagen. Swenson's Hardware Store, your locally independently family-owned hardware store since 1977. Check them out at swensons.doitbest.com. Thanks again to Doug and Kathy Zool. And some guy named Jay Hiscocks. You've heard of him, haven't you, Dean?
Oh, I have.
Yeah, I said
every once in a while I have to slap him up a little bit to get his attention.
That's good.
But that's what he does.
That's what he needs.
Yeah, he needs a lot of that.
I said that's Dean's great nephew, and I was like, I don't know if you want to use the word great in there, but yeah, he's a good guy.
So. He's a very good guy.
And I took my boys to basketball camp this week, even though it's a 2.5 hour drive. So
I don't like that word basketball. You know, that's almost a swear.
Yeah. The only swear word we have today, right?
Yeah, there we go. We have.
So thanks to Jay, great guy, awesome dude, great uncle here. Dean, give Jay or Lindsay a call at 843-3563 for all your insurance needs. And then Levi Dunn Trucking, call Levi at 641-860-0077 or look them up on Facebook. All right, Dean, let's get rolling here again. I'm pretty excited for this. We're at the library. We're in Britt doing it together. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're episode 80. You've done a lot of these, but when you get to do one in person like this, I really enjoy it. So tell everybody what's keeping you busy these days and where you're living.
I'm living up at Dexter, Minnesota. I retired from driving buses at Grand Meadow School. I worked at the Grand Meadow High School for 35 years. I was a janitor there, and I worked with that. Football, assistant, 7th, 8th grade assistant football coach for many years up there. And I janitor and drove school bus, and then assistant wrestling coach for about 10 years or more. And I worked we went up to the section tournament. I worked up there at a table worker, and I got the trophy there.
Yeah.
We got
in 2013 here, Dean was given an award for his years of service.
Yeah. Table work
in recognition of your outstanding service, dedication, and achievement in the sport of wrestling.
Yeah.
The Dean Hiscocks. Yeah, Dean brought up some stuff here to show me. Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Neat stuff he has. So.
And I was after that I worked up at the state for many years, and I got into the Minnesota Hall of Fame, the state of Minnesota, Bartholomew Hall of Fame. I worked at that, and I got into the Mayo Civic Center Hall of Fame because I worked up there. So other than that, I've had a good, interesting life with wrestling.
Good deal.
So-
We'll get to that here in a little bit. Tell us about your family, your wife, kids.
Okay, I got a Marie high school sweetheart. You know, when I was in high school, well, here comes all these country kids in and little kids, they were scared to death almost because of seniors. And we got to know each other and high school sweetheart. So then in 59, after I got out of service, I got married there. We have 4 children. Tracy's the oldest and she's down in Dallas, Texas right now. And after that, Tony, he lives in North Carolina, north of Raleigh, Minnesota. He worked for the prison system for 32 years and he retired from that, associated warden. And now he's playing golf most of the time.
Is he the one I met?
Yeah,
Okay, and he lives in North Carolina, you said?
yeah.
Oh, he's back in town to.
Yeah, he come up for 4th of July.
Nice.
We're gonna have a little cookout, you know.
Good deal.
So other than that, why, and then my other daughter, she lives up in Rochester. She worked at Mayo Clinic.
Nice. How many grandkids?
8.
8 grandkids? Nice. There you go.
Two
That'll keep
more.
you busy.
Yeah, 2 boys and 4 girls.
Nice.
No, there's more than that. Oh, well.
There's 8 total. We're good.
Yeah, it was 8 total.
Hard to keep track. I can barely keep track of my own 2 kids. So
Yeah.
there we go. So let's talk about I was telling Dean before we hit record, the 40s and 50s in Brit history are kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what was it like growing up in Brit in the 40s?
Okay,
What'd you do?
we lived out on the farm, mile west of Britt.
Okay.
And whenever we heard the boys play at the water tower, football, so here's guys, we jumped on the railroad tracks and we got to town faster because we had to miss a ties, you know, so we did that. And we played football for a while until about dark and then we run home again. And then Grandpa, when we went to high school there, or elementary, why, Grandpa always, we lived with Grandpa out on the farm. He'd always take us into school. We didn't have buses then back then, no school bus. So he drove us in and we had an hour off for lunch and Grandpa come and got us. He drove us home and brought us back to school. Got out at 4 o'clock. And then I did that until 8th grade. I come home at 8th grade. My dad was standing there and Irvin Call was there. And he said, Dad told me, go get some clothes until Sunday. This is on a Friday. Get your clothes till Sunday. You go with him. And after that, I stayed with Irvin and all 4 years of high school.
Okay.
Milked 20 cows every morning and night after football. In the morning, I had to run to town because we was on Class A milk, you know, so we had to run that into town. Then I'd come home and get ready for school. And he had 2 girls going to country school, so I took them to school. Come around, and I was always a half hour late for school, but I had study hall right away.
Yeah, they weren't
So I
missing
did
much.
that. So other than that, we raised sugar beets out there. We did a fine job, I thought. And other than that, I guess that was about it growing up. But
I assume you went to the old elementary school where the swimming pool
Yeah,
is now.
yeah.
That school was built in 1920.
yeah,
So, you know, that building was 20-ish years old. But what I've heard in the past is that school was very, you know, nice school for the area back then.
yeah.
What'd you guys think of that big building?
All that big building, yeah, we thought it was pretty good because they had what was so important about it, they had a swimming pool down there right by the dressing room.
Yeah.
And so after practice, wrestling practice, we'd generally sometimes take a dip,
Mhm.
as long as that.
Yep, I can smell that pool in that locker room just by you talking about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Had a very distinct smell to it, but I went to that school in the late, early to mid to late nineties.
yeah.
And so it was obviously, had several years of it getting kind of run down and they were wanting to
Oh,
build a new
yeah.
building and stuff. But man, just
Yeah.
the sheer size of that building for a bunch of elementary kids
Yeah.
was a big deal. That was a lot of fun. So, you had a lot of siblings.
Yeah, I
Can you,
had, well, my dad and mom, and then there's 11 kids in the family.
yeah,
Bonnie was the oldest. And then there's Bob, Bill, Donnie, me, and Monty, and Alan, John. And then there's 3 other girls, Judy, Jane, and Nancy. So Bonnie and I are the only 2 left right
and
now.
Bonnie lives here in Britt.
Yeah.
What's her last name? I can't remember.
Dawn.
Dawn.
Bonnie Dawn.
Bonnie Dawn.
Yeah.
And she's older than you by how much?
Oh, about 5 years, I think she is.
So she's about 65 and you're about 60, is that right? So.
Yeah, I'm 60. I wish I was. I shouldn't say this, but I will. I'll be 90 years old in October.
90 years young,
Yeah,
so
90 years.
pretty awesome.
And I had a wonderful life, so.
Yeah, good deal. When did you first get into sports? You mentioned playing football by the water tower, but
Yeah, that was in elementary there. And we went to town and played football with the kids. And Donnie and I, before we got out of the elementary, we worked at the Britt Hatchery at the time, working there, 40 cents an hour we got, big money then.
yeah.
And I remember once at the hatchery, we had chicken feed, 100-pound bags, and semi come in with a load of feed.
Mhm.
He says, why don't you guys go get the help? Donnie looked up at him. We are the help. So the guy would bring the bags back to us, and then he'd tip them on his shoulder. And us guys, we'd carry him in for that whole load of feed. And we did a good job. Back then, they had dish towels, different colors and that.
Yep.
When the ladies would come in to buy feed, I want that bag, I want this bag and that. So sometimes we had to take the pile apart to get what they wanted.
Yeah.
And that was not good.
No, but yeah, keep the ladies happy.
Yeah.
That's just how life works, right?
Yeah. So after that, when I was out at Urban Calls, we had 5 people in the ring and we baled hay. The hard men baled hay all summer. We got done with the hay, we went to straw, back to the hay. And I remember we had an old case wire tie.
Mhm.
And at the start, I'd always run the needles in and I couldn't pull that lever out to thread the needles. So I had to put my foot up, pull both hands, get that needle out of there.
Yeah.
By the end of the summer, I could just pull it out so nice. So I worked myself up pretty good.
Yeah, just as good as going to the weight room.
Yeah, just better than that because we're throwing bales all the time.
Ooh.
Right now, people says it's so hot and, it gets up to 80, 90. Not right now it is. But I always remember those times we was up in the haymow, 100 degrees or better, stacking bales. So the heat don't bother me too much.
No, builds character.
Yeah, Bill's
Yeah.
character.
And so some stories I had heard in researching for the book I wrote, I was told the Hiscocks not only wrestled on the mats growing up at the school, but anywhere there was a chance for some of you boys to wrestle and get into it, you guys were kind of feisty.
Yeah, we wrestle out on the yard, grass and that. Mama get our overalls all grass stained. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Oh, we're just horsing around, having fun.
At the co-op, I've heard some story, the floor of the co-op and some other places and just, just
any place we could, but
whoever
we did it.
Bugging each other that particular day was gonna get taken down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hit a few sponsors here, Dean, and then we're gonna get into actual wrestling.
Okay.
Contact Sarah Skarsky at Sarah Skarsky Bookkeeping Services for all your small business bookkeeping needs. You can go on her Facebook page or email her at sarahskarsky@gmail.com. Thanks to Linda Hughes. Thanks to Nick Schmidt, Michael Ewing of Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company with locations in Britt, Kanawha, Clarion, Belmont, and Dow's. Check them out at ewingfh.com or call them at 843-3839 or 762-3211. And double business here. We have Ashley Mosier, and now she's gonna have two businesses here in town. In His Image Photography and Red, White, and Brew Coffee Company. Not only does she capture your memories in her photography business, but now they're going to be in the coffee business in the old Hobnob location. So reach out to Ashley on Facebook. All right, Dean. Hiscocks crew is mostly known for wrestling. Like I said, we won't use that B word again. Basketball. Sorry. What drew you and your brothers into wrestling? What was it about the sport that got you guys?
Well, I think
rolling?
the coach had a lot to do with it because, you know, we was farm boys and we like to get together with each other and tangle and I think, well, we got a thing to do now, so we went in elementary. We kind of went into that, and then Dick Black was our coach at the time, and he took us around the elementary wrestling meet, you know, and I think then we got up into elementary, and then Jim Fox was our coach. Well, Jim was our coach before Dick Black.
Yeah.
And he got us going real good. And I think and then Dick came in and he got us going great, you know.
Yep. And I think that's one thing that hopefully the book I wrote will point out to people, you know, like it was with football with Bob Sanger. People think with wrestling it was Al De Leon, but there was a lot of history before those two came to Britt.
Yeah.
Britt wrestling obviously won a couple state titles in the early 60s, but lots of success from the late 40s up until De Leon came, and then De Leon kept it going, obviously. What I found in my research with doing the book and everything else I'm helping Mark with, looking at district titles here, I want to bring up some of your brothers. You'll find out here in a little bit, Dean was a state runner-up in wrestling in high school, but he did not win a district title, and I want to ask him what happened there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I had two really important guys ahead of me there. Tommy Chelsvik from Eagle Grove, Iowa.
Yep.
I think he won the state title. And then Dick Rohrer from Clarion, which is a really wrestling town.
Yep.
We had that, and they both were ahead of me. So that's why I never got the district championship.
Okay.
But I think when I went to state the next year, I think I won that.
Yep.
If I remember right.
Well, in my research, I did not find you winning a district title in 51 or 52.
Okay.
But your brother Bill got one in 1949, Monty in 53 and 54, John in 55, Alan in 55, John and Alan both in 56. And then I even dug down to the 80s. Mitch would be your nephew. Who did he belong to?
He belonged to Monty.
He was Monty's. Okay, Mitch won district titles in 81 and 82. So that answers my question of what happened in the district meet. But at state, let's kind of walk through this. And if you have any stories or remember anything about this, or you just want to talk about your brothers, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Wrestling started in Britt in 1946, and you mentioned Jim Fox. So we're kind of in that time frame here. In 1949. Your brother Bill was the first Hiscocks to go to state. He got third. Do you remember that state tournament watching your brother, or not?
I didn't get to go, I don't think.
Okay, so
because I was working at Irvin's and
or
wasn't. But anyway, I kind of small back then. But mom and dad, I'm sure went.
Yeah. Was there a competition factor between you brothers at that point? Like, okay, he got third, I want to do better than him, or I want to see if I can beat him out on the yard?
Never like that.
You guys all got along pretty well.
But Alan, my brother Al, you know, he won the state tournament.
Yep, 1956.
Yeah, him and Virgil DeVary from Mason City in the district. Why, it was 1-0. Alan won. So when they went to state, it was 1-0.
Okay.
Alan won. you know, and everybody talks about that. So,
This would be a good time to talk about Alan. He passed away at a pretty young age. What happened to Alan?
okay, Alan worked for Pioneer down in Des Moines, well, Urbandale.
Mhm.
So he had a little boy. So, and Ankeny, no, right on Des Moines. So he was gonna build a little fence in the back of the trailer house. So the little boy could run out and play, you know.
Yeah.
So the lady comes over and told Alan, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that in this park. So well, I'll move out then. So they moved up to Ankeny. And when he did that, the kid was with him. So when they backed the trailer in, got it all set up, Alan turned the air conditioning on.
Mhm.
So it'd be cool. So then when he crawled underneath the trailer to hook up the sewer line, he grounded it
Oh.
and was executed then.
Do you remember what year that was?
Oh,
It's
God.
like mid to late 50s, maybe?
Yeah.
Was that about right?
Yeah, I think it was about then.
Okay, because he won the state championship in 56, and that was his
Okay.
senior year. So it was just a couple years after high school, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yep. His son, you said he had a little boy. Is
Yeah.
he still around
he's out in Arizona right
out in
now.
Arizona?
Hemby, they call
Okay.
him. He used to wrestle down at Drake when they had wrestling at Drake.
Oh, nice.
He went down there and wrestled for a couple of years, and then they dropped it. So and then he went into construction out at
Okay,
Arizona.
nice.
He's out there, yeah.
Well, yeah, I got some details about Alan, but not a lot at this point. And so I put a little bit in the book there about him, but just a sad deal.
Yeah,
Had to have been pretty hard on your family, I would imagine.
I was up in Dexter, Minnesota at the time when they did that. And my Bonnie was living up there and her husband Gene. And they come down and told me that Alan had passed away.
Mm.
Well, Gene had a brother named Alan. And I told Gene, I said, oh, I feel so bad about it. Brother Alan dying, you know. He said, no, not me. It's your brother Alan.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, what? So I went to the funeral and I was milking cows, so I had the neighbors do my chores and all that. And we got along good and went to the funeral and all that.
Yeah.
So,
It's a sad deal at that age,
Yeah.
especially. Talk about Bill a little bit. We said he placed third in 1949. When
he was working out at Irvin's at the time, and when he left, well, then I took over his spot.
okay.
But
When did Bill pass away? Do you remember roughly when that would have been?
gosh, that's been 5 years ago.
Oh, so it wasn't that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he had cancer, you know.
Did he live in the area?
He lived in Garner.
Garner. Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a ways.
Yep, go back.
My dad had brain cancer.
Okay.
And I don't know if I should talk about
Nope.
it or not.
Whatever you want to talk
But
about.
they took half of his skull off.
Mhm.
And so then his brain swelled way out. You know, it looked like he had two heads.
Yeah.
So when we knew he was gonna pass, because when I was in Mankato, I used to hitchhike over to Rochester to see him. Mom was there all the time, so I got to see her. And then I rode the bus back. And so when he was about ready to pass away, they let him go home. And Donnie and I was there sometimes. And we could pick Dad up and put him in the chair while Mom changed the bedding and all that. And then we'd pick him back up and put him back in the bed. And, you know, and then when I was down at Omaha in the Junior Olympics, why I got Rummy Macius was my coach at the time, and Glenn Brand from Clarion.
Yep.
They got smart. They put me in the heavyweight division because I weighed 167. So what happened, Johnson from the University of Minnesota had 3 heavyweights there, and I beat all 3 of them. And I got in the finals, and I had a kid from Iowa State I was supposed to wrestle, but I didn't wrestle him because Dad died. And Bobby said, "I'll be over to get you, and I'll take you home." So I give all my stuff to the coach, and he took it all back to Mankato.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
And that was, what'd you tell me, like 52, 53,
Yeah.
roughly when you think that
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
Yep. And,
But then we went up to wrestle scrimmage when I was in Mankato. We went up to the U to wrestle the university scrimmage them. And Wally Johnson was a coach then. There's that Hiscocks kid. Watch out for him. So that's what happened when we was there.
yeah, watch out for all of them. There's a bunch of them. Yeah, they're all going to keep coming up. Yeah. Yeah. What about Monty? He placed 4th in 53. And then in 54, he was a state qualifier. He didn't place. Talk about Monty a little bit.
Monty was very good. He went there and I think we had one of the toughest districts in the state because we only had 1 class, and we had Mason City, Fort Dodge, Iowa Falls, Algona,
Clarion,
Eagle Grove, Clarion. And I think that Fort Dodge was there. And we always thought if you could get through this district, you would qualify someplace.
Yeah, you'd place or
have
a chance of winning it. Yeah, because this area, north centralish Iowa, that's what they were known for from the 40s through the 80s per se, for the most part.
And then came Emmitsburg had a good team after that. It was big and strong.
Yep, this part of the state's always had good wrestling. Yeah. What about Monty? How I see his son Monty placed at state in 1978, so I assume he was in the area.
Yeah, I think I was in Germany at that time.
Okay.
Because when I went, the cousin, your nephews and that was all wrestling when I got drafted and went to Germany.
Okay. When did Monty pass? Do you remember roughly when he?
Oh, the heck. After I got out, I can't remember that.
Yeah. Kind of roughly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And then we already talked about Alan a little bit. Alan was a state qualifier, then a state runner-up, and then a state champion.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before we hit record, you missed a lot of that because you were in the service.
Yeah.
But what do you remember hearing when you found out your brother won a state championship?
Oh, I thought that was really good. They still talk about that.
Yep.
And
do you remember any of the circumstances around like his finals match? Was it close? Did he pin the guy? I can't remember.
No, Alan and Virgil went together. And I think right at the last, one of them would escape. And then Alan went right at the last and escaped in the district, got out, won enough. And then it was all over.
Yeah.
And that same way in the state, everybody talks about that. And you talk about it today, you talk about Alan and Virgil. That was one of the best matches they've seen.
Yeah.
Because it was just right down tough and heck.
Yeah. Alan, like we said earlier, he passed away at a very young age. Yeah. So with the Kelly brothers, I talked, because they won 5 state championships between the 6 brothers, give each other a hard time and brag to each other. But obviously Alan wasn't around to do that. But did you guys ever give each other a hard time about your accolades and sports or anything? I got this, I did this, or you didn't do this, or were you all pretty chill with each other?
I think what happened at the time, we was all farmed out.
Yeah.
We didn't get too close to each other because I worked out, Donnie worked out, Bobby worked out, Bill worked out.
Yeah.
Everybody worked. Monty was gone.
You're too tired to give each other a hard time, right?
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. So, I put in here Alan again, but I'm pretty sure I messed up here. In 55, when Alan was a runner-up, I also put Alan as a quarterfinalist. Do you know which brother made it to state in 55 besides Allen. Would John have made it a second?
John did, yeah. I
Okay.
think John did.
There we go. That's why he was a quarterfinalist, and then
Yeah.
John was the state runner-up in 56.
Well, back then, they had riding time,
Yeah.
you know, back in then. And he was he wrestling? Anyway, I think he lost it by 4 or 5 seconds.
In the
Otherwise,
state championship match, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
he would have won that thing. But the riding time, you know, and then they got rid of the riding time after that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then we'll get to your runner-up here in a second, but that rounds out your brothers. So we
Yeah.
have a third place, a runner-up, fourth place, qualifier, runner-up, quarterfinalist, state champion, and runner-up between you and your brothers in
Yeah.
state wrestling. Pretty impressive. Like you said, Allen gets talked about to this day.
Yeah.
He's one of 47 state champions in our school's history, one of the first. And then 1978, Monty Jr. got sixth.
Yeah.
And then in 81, Mitch was state qualifier, and in 82, Mitch was also a state runner-up. So there's 4 runner-ups and a state champion between the entire Hiscocks family. Not every brother stayed in the area.
no,
Did any of their kids do well in wrestling in other parts of the world besides Britt?
No, that's about the
It was
only
mostly
time.
Monty's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They all stayed right around here,
a lot of
you
them. did.
know, all the cousins and nephews and all that.
Yeah.
Because most of them lived on the farm and did
Yeah.
farm work.
Now let's get to your runner-up season here. 1952.
You-
So we're going on 71 years ago.
Is that all?
That's it.
That's
No.
it, okay.
I was negative 34 years old when you got your runner-up, so put it in perspective.
Okay,
Man, you're doing well. In the first round, you beat a kid from Bettendorf named
Yeah.
Hugh Jacobson
Yeah.
by pinfall. I couldn't find a time on that pinfall. Was it a quick match or did
it
you
was a quick match. You know, when I stepped on the mat with him, as I remember, right? Oh, them guys down there, they don't know how to wrestle, you know, Southern Iowa. I said, oh, they don't know. So I wasn't scared at the time. So then I went out and pinned him right away.
Yeah.
So then after that, I got another guy who,
His name is Sharp from Des Moines.
yeah,
Back when they didn't have all the different Des Moines
Yeah.
schools. I didn't get a first name on the guy. It won by a decision. Do you remember the score of that match?
I think it was 4-2.
4-2.
But then he came to me, which I was kind of dumb on. He says, Dean, you gotta beat this kid so I can wrestle for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So Harlan Jenkinson.
Yep.
From West Waterloo. That was the only match I lost that whole year.
Yep.
And that was 4-2.
Both matches you think were 4-2?
Yeah.
And then that Sharp kid didn't get a wrestle back at that
No,
point?
he did not get to wrestle back. So I had to come back for a 2 second. And I wrestled that kid from Fort Dodge. And man, I was pooped, you know, when you have to come back. And all I did was tie his legs up and and every time he stood up, I took him down again and just tried to ride him out.
Well, that's interesting. I just learned something because I did not know you had to wrestle back for second then.
Yeah, I did.
Because in the Brit paper that I used to research for the book, it said nothing about a wrestle back for second. So I thought your match with that Jenkinson from Waterloo was your last match.
No.
So you had to wrestle one more. So I'm gonna have to write this down before we leave here in a little bit because I want to make sure I get it all in the record book.
Yeah.
Um,
But then back then, they did not call for stalling.
Yeah.
Harlan Jenkinson, I had the best set out I had. I set out, and then I used a hip heist. You know, I set out, I raised the one foot, and then I shot the other foot across, so I'd be on my knees.
Okay.
That's what I used. Well, the coach from West Waterloo, Harlan took my legs like this, and he just hung on for 2 minutes. And I couldn't move. I couldn't do nothing. And they didn't call stall.
When do you know when they started doing stall calls?
And after that, I think it was
Pretty
'cause
shortly.
People got tired of, you know, you go out there
action.
and lay down and and the kid on the bottom couldn't move.
Yeah.
So they never called stalling.
Yeah, it's not good competition, that's
No.
for sure.
And I think that's what's going on today. You know, they got the circle there. As
Yep.
long as you keep that foot in the circle, the time keeps going.
Yeah,
But yet you can lay on the side of the mat out of the circle as long as that 1 foot. And they use that for writing time.
yeah,
And it just keeps going and going.
yeah.
And I do not like the rule myself.
Don't blame you one bit.
No,
Did it take a long time to get over that loss in the championship match?
No,
Did it hurt
not too
thing,
bad.
or you're good?
Mom did.
Yeah.
Mom and dad was there. You know, they always come to the meets and dad was setting up there and mom. And I think Monty, Donnie and I was on the team all the time together, you know. Alan hadn't come up yet. But anyway, mom would sit there jumping back and forth. Poor dad, he'd get bumped and holler. So then after the state meet, I kind of went out in the hallway and, you know, when you lose, why, you know, the tears come.
Yeah.
And mom came out crying too.
Took her longer to get over it than it did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. But that guy the coach from West of Waterloo, when we went down to the Hall of Fame down at Cresco, Iowa, he'd always come up and talk to me.
Yeah.
That guy. He'd always say, I know you, Dean Hiscocks, yeah.
Nice.
And he'd always say hi and we visit a while.
Cool. Yeah, so that 1952 state tournament was actually in Mason City.
Mason City at the junior high.
Well, at the junior high even.
Yeah.
Wow, that's times have changed from downtown Des Moines now to a junior high in Mason City.
Roosevelt Fieldhouse, that's what they called it.
So I assume there was probably a lot of Brit fans there.
Yeah,
it was a close drive.
A lot of Brit fans.
What were the Brit wrestling fans like back then? Pretty supportive?
Oh, they were great, you know, they'd fill the gymnasium where we, in the old school, they'd fill that up. And then we'd roll the deals back where the seats were going to the stage.
Yep.
And, you know, they was facing the other way, but they put bleachers in there.
Yep.
And old wooden bleachers on this side, and it was full, and then the other side was full.
And when you were in high school, was the high school still where the elementary, what was it, still one building, or were you at the others?
Well, it is just one building.
Still that one building?
Just one building.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we was in elementary, we had a good time, Donnie and I.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say this, but I flunked 4th grade. And Donnie flunked 5th grade.
Yeah.
So we got together and then we went all through the high school together. Graduated together. And
you liked your teacher that much, you wanted to hang out with her again, right?
Yeah. My granddaughter wrote a little book about me. And she said, Grandpa flunked 4th grade. And she put it right in a little book she wrote about me. And they got a big kick out of that.
Oh, I'm sure. That's funny.
I always told her I'd love to teach her so much. I thought I'd flunk.
Yeah.
Just to see her next year.
Yep.
But then she got another job out of town. So there I was.
Like, that didn't work out.
Yeah, no, that didn't work out very good either.
Well, I'm a 4th grade teacher, and I think I get that a lot too. I want kids that want to come with me for a second year, but we just, keep pushing them on. So, yep. So, you had mentioned earlier before we hit record, Raspy Reibsman. I can't say his last name.
Forrest Reibsman. He worked at the bank up here, and worked at the Britt Bank uptown, kind of a upper one, you know. But when we went to matches, we didn't have school buses back then. So we'd gotten his car. And then the Undertaker, we used that for a bus.
Oh.
He took the
hearse?
Put the hearse. We piled, the other guys piled in that. And we had, I always sat in the front with Rusty. And then there's 3 boys in the back, and then the rest of them was in the hearse. And that's how we traveled.
Dean, I wish I would have done this interview with you before I finished writing my book, because I would have included the fact that you guys rode in a hearse to wrestling meets.
Yeah,
I wish I would have known that. That would have been cool.
Yeah. Then they got the buses. And the Bill Love from Britt
Yep.
was the driver. Could you imagine going all the way down to Iowa Teachers College to wrestle the school down there?
Yep.
35 miles an hour.
That's all. It could go.
He wouldn't go any faster. 35 miles an hour.
6 o'clock meet, you have to get out of school early to get there.
Yeah, you bet.
That's crazy.
I
So
didn't think we'd ever get there.
yeah, Rasty was the official statistician and scorekeeper.
Yeah.
If anybody out there knows where those documents ever ended up, please get a hold of me because I'd be very interested to make that wrestling record book here in a couple of years. But
I think Bob Reevesheim, he was a bank teller down in Corvallis, Iowa.
okay,
I don't know if he's still alive or not.
well, I know Bill is.
Yeah, well, Bill would probably
Maybe
know.
no, and I
If they didn't,
toss him out or something.
toss them all out.
Yeah, I'll be doing a podcast with Bill in the 1956 team here in about a
Okay.
month or so. So hopefully we can find him.
Talk about, maybe you get him before that, and look him all over.
That'd be cool.
But he had everything down, all your escapes, all your takedowns, reversals. He had all that in stats,
That's cool.
and that was something really, really nice.
Yeah, he's in the book many times, and like I said, his son Bill had a great senior year after he pretty much couldn't wrestle his whole high school career. And then
But then he went to be a state champion.
runner-up.
Runner-up, was it?
Yep.
And I couldn't believe that.
Yep, he went, literally from not wrestling since 7th grade to a state runner-up. Just that,
I couldn't believe it, but I did.
Yep, so going back to the state tournament, it was at Mason City Junior High. A lot of fans there. Waterloo West and Bob Siddons was their coach. They won state with 15 points.
Yeah.
Britt was 4th with 10 points. And like you said earlier, it's a one-class system. So you're wrestling against, it doesn't matter how big the school is or how small the school is. Britt was kind of that anomaly per se. Only 5 points away from tying for a state championship. The other two wrestlers that year in 1952, Dick Hansen and Dick Govig. Dick won the state title that year, and Hansen was 3rd.
Okay.
Here's my question. Had you won your state title match and had Hansen even made it to the finals, would you guys had enough points to
I
win it
think
all?
we could have been right there.
We were right at it.
Could have.
Yeah.
Because Eddie Klein from Mason City, that my cousin Dick wrestled, Dick could take him and just tear him apart after the 3rd period. Well, Dick, I shouldn't say it, but he smoked too much.
Okay.
And he couldn't even move in the 3rd period.
This is Dick Hansen?
Yeah, Dick Hansen.
So he's your cousin?
Yeah, he's my cousin.
Okay, and then would that be like Dwayne Hansen as well, or is that? Okay.
Dwayne.
There was a couple different Hansen families back then, and I believe 2 of them had the same name, and one was an O-N, one was an E-N at the end, so that got real confusing. But I was curious if that would have maybe gotten us a state title or even runner-up.
Yeah, that could have got us right up there because I think back then you got 16 points for first. Okay, it just depends on what size the bracket was.
Okay.
The bigger the bracket, you got more points.
Yeah.
But if you keep moving out, you get so many points for that too.
Okay. Because it's not a lot of team points. Mason City or Waterloo had 15 and we had 10.
Yeah.
Now you look at state tournaments and these kids are wrestling back 5-6 times. And they're, teams are Britt, I think this last year racked up 70 team points and got 8th.
Yeah.
So it's a different scoring system nowadays and a different wrestle back system.
Back then, I think we only had one match a week. Every Friday, I think, well, unless we went to a tournament on Saturday. But we only had the Eagle Golf tournament, the Clarion tournament. Algona might have had a tournament back then too. And they were tough as nails. They had the Klein boys back then.
You could be a state runner-up and have a 17-2 record for the whole season or something like that. Could. And now they wrestle that before Christmas. So
I think I only had, maybe my record in high school was maybe 9 to 1 or 2.
Yeah. Each season.
Wasn't very much. Now they get up in the 30s.
They can wrestle 5-6 times a day in a tournament. So talk about Dick Govig. He is a 2023 West Hancock Hall of Fame inductee. I did a podcast with Dick, and that's he's hoping to get up here in August. I hope he does too. What do you remember about Dick Govig?
Oh, him and I were best of friends.
Yeah.
Cause we went to wrestling together and, you know, if he won, I won, and we kept working back and forth, you know. We're very good buddies. And we did a lot of things together, you know.
Yeah.
Even after high school, got together a lot, worked a lot.
Yep, him and his wife made a name for themselves in the
Oh,
business
yeah.
world down in Arizona. And I just informed Dean that his wife passed away last month. I think it was like May 11th or something like that.
Can't believe it.
Dick was in the podcast I did and all the interactions with him lately leading up to the Hall of Fame. His son Todd, just good people. And I know Dick's excited to hopefully get up here in August. Knock on wood, the track project gets done in time.
Okay, yeah.
They're tearing up the track, putting a new 8-lane in. We want that done
Yeah.
before the Hall of Fame thing. So, yeah.
I remember Dick, well, whenever we went to the Nationals, I went to the national tournament down in Ames, Iowa, back in 1987. And since then, I think I missed 5 tournaments.
Okay.
Because I'd always go every year. And now I go, my son and I, we just take the Big Ten tournaments in. Because that's mostly the Nationals, all Big Ten people.
Yeah, Penn State, Iowa.
Yeah. So we've been going to that instead of the Nationals. But this year we are going to Kansas City. It's down in Kansas City this year. Yep. So we'll go down there.
Speaking of nationals, Dick won a national
Oh,
title
yes,
in 1954 for the University of Iowa. And I was on a Zoom the other night for the alumni board meeting, and Chuck Mockley's on that board. Chuck said he probably would have won 3 titles, Dick would have, but he hurt his shoulder, I think he said.
One at a time he did.
And he's like, he couldn't, it wasn't himself for the last 2 seasons of wrestling. He could have been a 3-time national champion. You never know. So that would have been pretty cool.
He had this one kid from Iowa that kind of remember his name, but Dick and him went head to head all the time.
Yeah.
So then after that year, where the boy moved up a weight, and Dick asked him, he said, why did you move up? I'm tired of getting beat by you. He said, I'm just tired of getting whopped by you.
Yeah. One thing I saw online, I have not found it since. So on Facebook, there was an Iowa wrestling thing for Iowa Hawkeye Wrestling, and it had every national champion for the Hawkeyes on there.
Yeah.
And it says you have $20 in play money to build your all-time roster of Iowa Hawkeye wrestlers. Yeah. And Dick Govig was on there because he was a national champion, and you could buy Dick Govig for $1.
Yeah.
And people were commenting on the Facebook thing saying, "Oh, I would take Dick Govig in a heartbeat." And people, that remembered him, started typing and writing about how good he was, and like, "Oh, he should be a $3 or $4 wrestler on this silly chart someone made up." And it was really cool that people were remembering him from 60 some years ago. You know, it was really neat. So,
well, I remember every time we went to the Nationals, where they'd the ring of circle, you know, they took all the people and walked around all the champions, and Dick was always in the right there.
Yeah,
you walk around, I could never get down. They wouldn't let you down, and I always try to get down and say hi to him.
Yeah,
because I hadn't seen him for it. Well, when I went to the Nationals, I wouldn't see him again until the next National.
Yeah.
So,
well, knock on wood, we'll see him in a couple months. Not even a couple months.
You said knock on wood?
There you go. Yep. So to finish up wrestling here, before we get to your coaching, Dean brought something here that I took a picture of because I want to keep this and remember it. After high school, I'll get it up a little closer. Dean wrestled in the 52 Olympic trial game in Mankato State Teachers College. He got 3rd place at the 147.5 weight class in the semifinal tryouts held by the United States Olympic Committee to select a team to represent the United States of America at the games in Helsinki, Finland, 1952. Tell him how close you were to wrestling at the Olympics.
Well, I was really close because I hadn't trained since I went up there. In periods, they was 5 minutes. I'm not used to 5 minutes. I was only used to 2. But I could, in the 3rd period, I was so tired, I didn't get back on the mat soon enough. And that's what did it.
So it was like a penalty point they assessed
Penalty
on you?
point, yeah. Because you had to get, and I chased the guy all around the mat,
Yeah.
but I couldn't. Stupid, I kept doing this one hold, and I should have went to something else, but I didn't.
So had you not had that penalty point, do you think you had a good shot at beating him in that match?
Yes, I could have.
Yep.
Yeah, but then when I went to Mankato, the school, he was there.
Okay.
And in practice room, I beat him all the time then.
What was his name?
Frank Hiscocks.
Okay, and how did he do at the Olympics? Do you remember?
No, I don't
You don't
remember.
remember?
But when I was up there, the guys from Iowa State was there. I think Hugh Alopodic was the coach then. But I got a ride home with them guys. They said, "Well, Dean, how are you getting home?" And I said, "Probably wait till morning and hitchhike," because that's what I did most of the time.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, we'll give you a ride home." Well, I generally cut across when I got to Blueworth. I cut down to Woden, Iowa, and then that way I could get home faster. Well, I wasn't too sure at night to go that way.
Yeah.
So I took them around by Algona and then come back on 18.
Okay.
And I said, "Well, you can let me off here because there's only little ways from 18 to the house."
So how many times did you hitchhike in your?
Oh gosh, that's a hitchhike all the time. Well, the wife I have now, she went to Iowa Teachers.
Yep.
And so sometimes on the weekend, on Friday, I'd hitchhike from Mankato down home. And Saturday, I'd hitchhike down to Cedar Falls to see her. I had to be home by Sunday.
Mhm.
So I went back on hitchhike back. And then Dick Rohrer from Clarion, we rode together.
Okay.
He drove and I rode with him back to Mankato. So
Did you ever have any weird experiences with people?
No,
hitchhiking,
back
or
then,
everyone was
no.
just, that was the normal thing?
No. What happened a lot of times, I'd start hitchhiking. I was right at the corner,
Mhm.
and I can't think of the highway, but the truckers always come down around that corner. And I rode with a lot of truckers
Did you?
to Cedar Falls.
Was it customary to like give them a little like gas money, or was it
No,
just they were
no.
just like, hey, I'm going that way anyway, might as well have someone to talk to?
Yeah, that's what had happened.
Yeah.
I talked to them and,
It's just amazing how it's changed over the years, because now
I
it's
would
like,
never hitchhike now. No.
or pick up a hitchhiker because you're
Yeah.
just all but assuring yourself of getting mugged or murdered or
Yeah.
something bad.
Well, I
Yeah.
came home from the cities once. I was up there and I picked up some guy, but he wouldn't sit in the front with me. He said, "I'll sit in the back." And I thought, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I made him sit up in front. I shouldn't have let him sit back there."
What do you think his intentions were?
I don't know, but he was really nice. He kept
Okay.
talking and I took him as far as I could and
Yeah. Yeah.
dropped him off and he said, "Thank you."
Yeah, I say it often. I'm jealous of people that grew up, kind of in that era, because it was just a simpler time, safer time.
Yeah,
People were, more trusting and giving, and it just would have been a lot of fun to grow up in that time. So I'm gonna get to a few sponsors quick, and then we'll give you a little brain break, and then we'll finish up here in a little bit.
Brain? You said something about brain?
Brain break? Yeah, there's something in there. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
The Flower Car is sponsoring this episode. They are now at their new location just down the road here on Main Street. Check them out on Facebook. Thanks to the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise for sponsoring 30 episodes of the podcast plus more. Jared Wingert also owns Mojo Productions. Give Jared a call at 515-408-1074. And then thanks to the Showalter family and Window World of Mason City. Once an Eagle, always an Eagle, Fly High Coach Sanger and Joey Showalter. And then Triple B's Food Trucks owned by Brett Kozlerich. Brett was my student teacher, now going on 2 school years ago. He's a teacher at Panorama. He owns 4 food trucks, and I'll be working for him next weekend down in New Virginia. Best tenderloin you'll ever have. Always made fresh, never frozen. So check out Brett. He goes all over the place, different states even. So give him a call at 641-895-0885 if you need a food truck. All right. Let's move on from this part where I'm pointing back at this Olympic thing. Talk about your coaching career a little bit up in Minnesota.
Okay, what I did, I started with the elementary. I worked with the elementary for a couple of years and
Reach up here and get your water. Sorry, I just jumped right into the camera there.
That's all right.
I want to make sure you have some water.
How do you get that?
Pull up on it.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. But I worked with the elementary and I worked there for about 3 years with the elementary, and I took them all over southern Minnesota, and we even went down to Manly, Iowa a couple times. We worked tournaments down there.
Yeah.
And I drove the van all the time. And the superintendent was really nice about it. He said, Dean, why don't you take a bus? Maybe some of the parents will ride with you. Take care of the kids, you know, because they always horsing around.
Yeah.
So we did that. And we went all over.
And that was Grand Meadow, did you, or
Grand Meadow,
Grand
yeah.
Meadow, yeah.
So then after that, Jerry Reeker came as our superintendent. He said, Dean, how would you like to move up to junior high? I said, I don't like that. So I did that for about 3 years. And then after that, he come, Dean, you're going to be assistant coach.
Mhm.
So I went up to assistant coach, and we took the kids, our team, we took them to state 2 years in a row. And we could have did something, but this guy that was taking the weight, we had 2 sleaze boys on the team, and Adam and Seth, and this guy was taking the weights, writing it down. Well, I got his name already, and I was working on the weigh-ins, but I went back to the hotel early, and they didn't know where I was staying.
Oh.
And otherwise, I would have got that kid back to get him weighed in again. And so, and that's what happened. And we had to give up weight ahead of us and the weight behind us because of that.
Oh.
So we lost 12 points even before we even got started.
Oh, geez.
Otherwise, I think we could have went right up to the finals.
Nice.
In that deal. But now when we go up to, when I was up there now, I worked up there for 29 years at the state tournament.
Mhm.
And the last year I wanted to get 30 years in, but then I went to the bank to get my money to go. And then I stopped for gas at the station. Well, this kid that run the gas station didn't clean his deals out very good. So I walked through the pump, slipped on the ice, broke my ankle.
Oh, man.
So then I stayed in the hospital, and that's why I didn't get my 30 years in up there.
I'd say close enough.
Yeah.
Just count it. It wasn't that you didn't want to, as you
No, I
counted.
wanted to get up. Even the guy that run the weigh-in, Dean, you're supposed to be up here. I said, I'm laying in the hospital bed. How can I move? So, but otherwise, I had a great time.
Yeah.
Wrestling and that.
Yeah. Dick Black, you're one of the coaches at Britt High School back in your era. He was a legendary Minnesota coach, right? What do you remember about Dick Black coaching at Minnesota?
Oh, well, Dick would come, and we was playing football one night. I didn't know who he was, but he comes out there, you know, big muscles and that, when we was practicing football, standing there. Then after that, he was wrestling coach. And after that, we got to going. And our wrestling room was down in the dungeon.
Yeah.
And we did that. And we kept going, and we finally got going, and we had a good team. And what happened, because he left, he would have had a legend there. The gym was right next to the superintendent office. And, you know, Dick always had volleyball then. And you know how the kids play volleyball, they made a lot of noise and that. Superintendent comes over to Dick and said, "Can't you keep them kids quiet?" You can't keep a kid quiet when they playing volleyball tournaments and that, you know?
Yeah.
So Dick got tired of that and he left and went to Carroll, Iowa.
Yep.
So I was in Mankato at the time and he calls me up and says, "Dean, I need a truck driver." So then I had my license. So I moved him down to Carroll and he stayed down there. And I was at Mankato. Then he'd call me and I had my referee license at that time. And he said, "Dean, I got a meet down here. You want to referee it?" And I said, "Sure." So I went down there and I refereed it.
From Mankato to Carroll?
Yeah.
Ooh, was that
And then I
where?
stayed the weekend with him, you know.
Okay.
And then I went back. to
Yeah, so it
Mankato.
probably wasn't a highly profitable week of
No.
refereeing, but it was more just having fun with your coach and
Oh, yeah,
seeing
that
him and
was the
stuff.
best.
So
Well, I got started refereeing. Dale Brand from Clarion
Yep.
taught me so much about refereeing.
Yep.
He,
oh, go ahead.
good. And when I got done refereeing at Clarion, well, he'd come in and give me everything I did wrong. He said, "Dean, you got to do this, you got to do that." And I said, "Okay, I'll work on it." So then Dick would call me and, "Dean, I need a truck driver." So I drove him up to Otana. He coached up there and won the state tournament that one year at Otana.
And he had dozens upon dozens of state champions and runner-ups and qualifiers.
Yeah.
And going way back to what we were talking about earlier, we think Al De Leon, Britt Wrestling, West Hancock Wrestling. There were 3 or 4 other coaches before Al that, you know, left Britt. Jim Fox went to Davenport. Black went to Owatonna. There's one more on top of my head I can't think of right now. Roth. But there were several that went on to have good careers elsewhere. And it's like, who knows if they would have stuck around. Would we ever know who Al De Leon is outside of the wrestling circle? Because they might have. Right. You just never know. But
he was a good guy too. Al was.
Yep.
Nice family.
Yep. Oh, I did a podcast with Lois and another one with John, and yeah, it's just amazing how many good coaches we've had come through Britt over the years.
Yeah.
Yep. What's your maybe favorite memory from your Minnesota coaching and helping days? What's something that sticks out to you?
When I was wrestling at Mankato, we went down to Cole College in Cedar Rapids. We wrestled them on a Friday night. And then this is the second year we was up to Mankato. But then we went up to Iowa Teachers College and we beat them by 1 point. Bill Cole was the coach at that time. And he didn't like it because we beat him. But I read in the paper before that they had to really wrestle good because we had such a strong Minnesota team at that time. And that was the second year I think Mankato had it. But we had kids come in that was so good, you know, from Otana and Faribault and that.
Britt.
Yeah.
What was your best finish in college wrestling? How well did you do?
I got second team points at Mankato. I was on, you know, and Dick Rohr from Clarion was the first, and I was second with team points. You know.
Then like at conference and nationals, how'd you do there?
Yeah, we won the conference.
Did you? Back
then we wrestled. Winona had wrestling at that time. St. Cloud, all the. Okay, then that's what happened. Back then that was the biggest fun time then. Because my wife Marie and now she was sitting in the stands. We weren't married at the time. And her roommate was there with her. And she got to watch us wrestle. And then I asked the coach Rummy, could I walk her back to the dorm? He said, "Well, you better hurry up because we're leaving." So we jumped in the cars after that and went back to Mankato.
Nice.
So that was good.
Good deal. We're gonna get ready to wrap this up. I did want to mention here quick, you were also all conference in 1951 on the football team.
Yeah,
I always love talking about football. Also on that all conference team was Dave Shaw, Dwayne Garman, Tom
Yeah.
Hughes, Don Hiscocks, Dick Govig, Gareth McMullen, Howard Clark,
yeah,
Dick Smith, and Mel Hampy. So I just like to throw out some of those names.
okay.
I'm intrigued by the Jim Harveys and
Oh,
Mort Williams and all those
Yeah.
guys. We might have to do a part 2 episode because I think we have a lot more to talk about.
yeah,
But I do want to throw out while you're looking for something quick, and you were the 2011 Alumnus of the Year here at
Yeah,
Britt West
yeah.
Hancock. I'm on the board for that with Bill Friedow and some others.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people to get to the Alumni Banquet along with the Hall of Fame thing. Hit me up for information. Yep, and here were you all state as well?
Yeah.
Nice. I might have to make sure I have that in the record book because sometimes information's hard to find. Here's all state, here's all conference of Dean back in the early 50s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's right there.
yep. And I connected with Dean at the Unidome this fall at the 2022 state championship game. You keep an eye on things still, don't you?
Yeah, I really do. I like the football from Britt. If they go again this year, I'll be down.
Yep, they play that smash mouth,
Yeah.
run it down your throat type football that we all
Yeah.
like. So, yeah, Dean, we might have to do a part 2 on this someday. We'll have to figure out a day to
Okay.
come and do some more stories. But
Yeah.
I know you have to get going. And
Well, I was going to, Bonnie's got supper ready for us. And so then we're going to the races.
yep,
So, but here's a picture I want to show you.
yeah,
And there's Dick Hansen, Gary Green, Dick Govick, and there's a kid from Algona.
okay,
And I'm way back here.
yep. I met Gary Green on the
Yeah.
phone, talked to him a little bit. He's out in Colorado doing pretty well.
Yeah. And there's that Reeks that beat Donnie out.
Okay,
And these, well, like it says, you'll hear more from these guys.
nice. Yeah, and, I had some good ones.
So,
Well, Dean, we're gonna wrap this up. Thanks again to my sponsors. Dean, I want to thank you a lot for coming
Okay.
out. This was a lot of fun. I think we gotta get together again.
yeah,
So,
we will.
next up is the 1977 through 79 volleyball teams. Then I had to reschedule the Kudejs, Brighton and Jeff. Brighton was on that football team we talked about. Ben Muller, Brian Peterson, and then the 1956 wrestling team. We mentioned that in the podcast a little bit. So I'm excited for those episodes. This was a lot of fun. Thanks again to the
Yeah,
the
really,
Britt
yeah.
Public Library for letting us use their space. It's a really nice
Really
building.
nice place.
Oh, it's
really
great.
nice.
So I appreciate it, Dean. And we're gonna wrap it up like I always do and say, go Eagles.
Go Eagles.